What is happening? Happy New Year to everyone. Paul Shaughnessy, Cody Saftic here with some new content, new things. The new year, new us, new Dogger Pass slash bookie beatdown coming at you. Bookie beatdown for the OGs. They may remember. But yeah, this year we're deciding, people have wanted to have more content from me and mostly from Cody, a lot of regional stuff, different previews, recaps, so on and so forth. There's only so much time at the Mayo Media Studios. So as you can see, Cody's got a whole brand new setup behind him. I've got a whole new setup here. You'll see my dog Gabby. She'll probably bother me at some point over the course of the show. Where it's a new look, it's a new experience for all of us. But yeah, we will be providing more content if you are interested. And this first episode here, we're gonna look at like futures odds. So futures of who will win or who will be the champion at the end of 2025. Cody, would you want to add anything to the little preamble here?
Yeah, that's essentially it. So I think I've always wanted to make more content, but where do you put it? So for a little while there, I was flirting with the idea of having my own YouTube channel, CJ MMA, and I enjoyed doing it. Did some previews for regional stuff, did recaps, which I thoroughly enjoyed. But then at some point, you have a kid, then you have a second kid right away. Bad idea, let me tell you. And then things get kind of lost in the shuffle. So I feel like 2024 was an off year for me. Just didn't really have my mindset in it. Million different things going on, putting my plans, putting my ambitions to the side to try to get this family going. And then now I'm at a point where I'm comfortable with that. So Paul's got his dog running around. You may hear kids running around. But the bottom line is that we do it because it's a passion. And so, we want to create more content. And I think there's a subset of fans that have always asked us for more shows and, various looks and various different types of things. We just never really been able to commit to it. So now we're in a position here where it's like we don't have a sponsor on the show. There isn't a book. There isn't having to chase down somebody that wants to give you a promo code and sign people up. It's essentially sponsored by the people. So if you're even just watching this, if you are on, you do subscribe to the Patreon, just thank you. You are the show's sponsor and you are enabling more content being created. But it also allows us to put our full ambition, our full heart into it, our full energy into it, and then hopefully crush some winning picks. So that's the bottom line. People like the content, people like the camaraderie and the back and forth, but they like to win money. So that's what we got to get to. And by doing more regional shows and covering more little promotions, I think that we'll be able to find those little golden eggs and those little diamonds in the rough, so to speak, instead of just focusing on UFC, which has been steamed for weeks on end.
And to add to that, hi Gabby. See, she's back. I guess you can't see her because we're on the two shot here. But yeah, if I go to the full and she jumped out. Either way, Dogger Pass on Mayo Media Network. If that was like misconstrued there, it's not going anywhere. We're continuing to do. We're still sponsored by CoolBet. Promo code Dog or Pass when making a new account to get a match up to $200 on your first deposit. They're actually sending me down to Costa Rica at the end of January. I'm going to be in like a poker tournament, be an ambassador for CoolBet. So we are still
Better
friends.
win, Paul.
We are friends with CoolBet, but CoolBet doesn't offer, in fairness, a lot of these regional shows. So Cody's been smacking them around. I toy in and out with it. I hope to learn a lot from Cody, and obviously I bring some to the table with the production aspect and building this thing out to make it as good for the patrons as humanly possible. But without for me and you, we aren't exactly natural born salesmen, I wouldn't say, Cody. What we do is have fun breaking down fights. So why don't we or breaking down divisions and who will be the champion of said division. So why don't we hop over to that right now? I think we start with the heavyweight division. We'll go big boys all the way down. Don't bury the lead, as they say in the biz. And we got heavyweight division here. Tom Aspinall minus 130, John Jones plus 110, Jailton Almeida plus 300, Cyril Gahn plus 500, Alex Pereira plus 1,000, Curtis Blades plus 130, Volkov, Pavlovich. Then you start getting into like Alexander Romanov. It's like we love Romanov. I love Romanov. Cody's been a hater historically. We love him. But like some of these guys down here, it's just like Sergey Spivak. It's just like I will. Yeah, it's 70-1. It's just like I don't know. I'll do something. You make up something egregious, Cody. If Sergey Spivak's the champion the heavyweight champion of the UFC at the end of 2025, I'll go skinny dipping in the Atlantic Ocean. Save that, mark it. It's not happening. But what I think is interesting here is like you have John Jones and Aspinall, obviously, at the top of the board. And yeah, the interesting thing about this whole aspect of it is like I see at another book an offshore that's a little bit sharper typically. Aspinall's minus 200. Um, I mean, John Jones apparently in the news right now is asking for $30 million to fight Tom Aspinall. Dana's not going to give him that money. I would be very shocked. And I'm sure it's a negotiation thing, yada, yada, yada. But it's always seemed like John Jones doesn't want to fight for it. Are they going to wait a full year? There's no Stipe hanging around anymore. There's a bunch of young killers, young assassins that John Jones doesn't want to fight. I think earlier than not, Aspinall gets that belt. The question becomes who is next in line after that, and is that person able to take out Aspinall? But if you have like a DraftKings account, minus 130 Aspinall seems like a pretty solid bet to me. What about you?
Yeah, those are the only two that I can really think of myself. Tom Aspinall being that he seems to be the best heavyweight in the world right now. So he has the title around his waist currently as of this moment, interim title or not. At some point, it's going to be the full version of the title, and you're holding a Tom Aspinall ticket. So right off the get-go, Aspinall, not a terrible look. Who beats Tom Aspinall? Well, we all want to see the John Jones fight. 100% we all want to see the John Jones fight. But John's only going to probably fight one time the entire year. Either he doesn't fight Aspinall and he doesn't fight, or he fights Tom. But I don't see a whole lot of scenarios where he fights Tom and then squeezes another one in. He wants to get paid $30 million, like you say. You don't get paid $30 million and fight 2-3 times a year. You're looking for that one carrot, one fight, one big payday. You look in the boxing world, guys like Tyson Fury, they'll fight just the one time a year, and he'll command a $50-60 million payday. Why can't John Jones get that same $50-60 million payday? So I think, like you said, negotiation tactics. He's probably not going to get the full 30, but he needs to throw an outrageous number out there. The UFC says no. The UFC thinks about it. The UFC realizes who else exactly does Tom Aspinall fight, and that's where eventually they probably come to the conclusion, let's throw John Jones in there. So Aspinall at minus 130 or minus 200 seems like the logical pick. John Jones being that I think he probably fights for the title once in 2025. He has the skills that he could beat Tom Aspinall in theory. So him at plus 175, plus 200, depending on the book, not a terrible look. And then outside of that, it's a bit of a stretch. Cyril Gane, do not bet Cyril Gane. So he's been absolutely exposed at this point. If he's your third best selection, you can just write him off the board. Doesn't have the wrestling to beat John Jones, clearly. Doesn't have the wrestling to beat Tom Aspinall. He doesn't have the wrestling to beat Alexander Volkov. Yeah, I think he won the fight, sure, but just so greasy and guy can't clearly grapple, so you take him off. Alex Pereira is probably still another year away from moving up to heavyweight. He's still got some unfinished business to do at 205. I don't think he makes the move right away. Sergey Pavlovich, beat by Volkov. Volkov then gets beat. There's a bit of a weird triangle going on there. I don't think he ends up fighting for the title. He's also already lost to Tom Aspinall early in the first round, so there's not exactly, a huge market to run that one back. So you can largely write all those guys off. Jailtown Almeida, interesting. Because, he's a world-class operator on the ground. He seems to be getting better and better. He's still young enough that he could be a factor. And at heavyweight, you're only really 1 or 2 fights removed from challenging for the title. That's what we need. Who's going to challenge? Almeida could beat a guy or two, challenge for the title. And then if you can challenge and you're holding a plus 1,800 ticket on it, you'd be quite happy with that, right? So if you're looking for a long shot guy, Jailton Almeida probably to me at plus 1,800.
Yeah.
But if you're trying to play it safe, Tom Aspinall or John Jones are likely holding that title come the end of 2025.
That's wild. Like Jailton Almeida is like one of the biggest disparities. So DraftKings Sportsbook has him at plus 300. And then Bet Online has him at plus 1,800.
Yeah, I'd like that ticket. I don't like a plus 300.
Plus 1,800. I think Alex Pereira is a decent shout as well because
you could
because like he is trying to like win all of the belts, make legacy, that type of thing. So if Jones' negotiation tactics don't work, I could see a world where they're like, okay, let's book like an Aspinall like for like the end of the year pay-per-view next year. like an Aspinall versus Pereira type of situation. Because who steps up in the big spots every single time for the UFC, at least in
Yeah.
2024? It was Pereira. Now he's 10 to 1 and 11 to 1. So it's pretty, it's a 10% chance basically. But like, I don't hate that as a shot. Outside of those guys, though, yeah, like Aspinall, I guess Jones, but Jones probably only going to fight once. So it's like, you kind of need to know whether he's going to actually accept that fight. But yeah, I think yeah, over on the offshore there, Jailton now made 1,800. Seems, I know they're typically a pretty sharp sports book, but
But it's
I mean,
but it's
18 to
plausible.
1, it's definitely plausible. And like, he's a great grappler. So, Aspinall, if he gets taken down to the ground early, we know he's got jujitsu in his own right, but can he withstand that early pressure?
Oh,
Probably, but 18 to 1 is a nice little price to find out. Yeah, don't hate that at all.
yeah, and if I could just add, if they were to book Tom Aspinall versus Gelton Almeida right now, then Gelton Almeida would be like a plus 350 underdog, right? But in here, you'd be holding a plus 1,800 ticket. And Paul, it doesn't matter if he can or cannot beat Tom Aspinall because of two reasons. One, it's heavyweight. Just get me in the fight, and something wild could happen. Second of all, you've seen that happen with Tom Aspinall before. He like breaks his ankle in the first round, right? Against Curtis Blades.
Heavyweight's crazy.
Yeah, heavyweight's crazy. Just get my guy in the fight, and then that's good enough. You'll be holding a juicy enough ticket. It's just when you're looking at it, Derek Lewis is not going to end up in a title fight. Marcin Tybura, it's too much of a stretch. Spivak, not likely. I like your theory with Alex Pereira. The only issue there is you need John Jones to negotiate a $30 million payday. He gets 15, let's say. He beats Tom Aspinall. Then he's going to negotiate a super fight with Alex Pereira, which is dope. Don't get me wrong. But the negotiations themselves are probably going to push this thing to like early 2026. And then you had the right idea. It just took too long to materialize, right?
Mm-hmm.
So unless Aspinall and John Jones fight in the first quarter of 2024, that one, I like where your head's at. And I actually think it's a plausible scenario as well. But I don't know that one materializes. Either Aspinall's holding it, John gets that one fight and dethrones him, or if Almeida can beat a Sergey Pavlovich or Almeida can beat a Cyril Gahn, he leapfrog himself right into the fight as well. So that fact that he's able to do that, let's go. Last thing, and we can move on to light heavyweight. If you're on Bet Online, Angelo Bodette plus 7,500. I don't think he exists. I tried to look him up. It's like not
Oh, I think he works for that. He does that other like that We Want Picks.
Okay.
Yeah,
well,
so
that's
somebody, so because you can write in people on. I think that's who that is. I'm not entirely sure. I've seen Evan UFC fight with that guy a bunch. So I'm thinking that somebody wrote him in as a joke, and you know the Bet Online, they like messing around with people like on that type of front. All right, let's move over to the light heavyweight division. The best odds on the board is actually plus 150 for Alex Pereira. He's juiced to minus 120 over on DK. Then you got Magomed Ankalaev plus 190, Jamal Hill plus 700. God, I don't think so. After he got knocked out the way he got knocked out, I just don't see that actually happening. I don't get that one. I think Ulberg 9 to 1. I don't think if you were gonna take a long shot, but plus 150. I know it's boring, but like who else in the light heavyweight division unless he hops out, like unless Pereira decides to like leave the division, who else takes? He's beaten Yuri, he's beaten Jan. Ulberg's the guy who hasn't had a shot. So 9 to 1 if you're gonna take an outlier. I think that's the only outlier. Over on DK, I'll pull that up right here in a sec. Replacing the screen share. If I pull that up right now, they have a little bit more options over here. Dom Reyes, he's had a nice little comeback. Don't get me wrong. He could get a shot. But do you think he's going to beat Alex Pereira? I don't know. Light heavyweight. Hamzat, does Hamzat make the move up there? He still has a lot of work to do at middleweight. He's going to get that shot. Is it by the end of the year? Is he going to get a move up to another division? I don't know. All to say that like Pereira plus 150, I think, is like really the only play I would feel great about. And Allberg, if you wanted to take an absolute flyer.
Yeah, I'm not going to disagree. Again, with light heavyweight, it's kind of a thin, barren wasteland of a division where a lot of these guys could find themselves in a title fight. And if they can get into a title fight, there's ways to win. I mean, Alex Pereira, as good as he is, and boy, oh boy, is he good. He's still a flawed fighter. Like, if you can test his grappling, I feel like that's a path to victory. And then the fact that if you look at Khalil Roundtree on the board, he's plus 2,500. But there's no challengers, so he gets thrown in there and he still wins the first 2 rounds over Alex Pereira. He still gave him a go. It was a beautiful performance by Pereira, don't get me wrong, but yeah, again, some fringe contender can get vaunted into a spot. When you look at other weight classes, it's like this guy may need 3 wins before getting a title fight, but that's not so at light heavyweight, where you've seen guys like Anthony Smith and Aubin St. Preux, guys of that ilk, get title fights simply because there's just nobody else there. So when you look at it, Alex Pereira seems like, plus 150. Can he hold on to this title for 12 months? And here's my issue with that. That he clearly doesn't want to fight Magomed Ankalaev. He's avoiding the fight with Ankalaev. That doesn't mean he's not a gangster. That doesn't mean he's not a badass. But it's just a similar situation to when Tyron Woodley was the champion or Michael Bisping was the champion. It's like they don't want to fight the best guy in the division. They want to fight what's the most exciting fight, and it's thrilling, and you can get paid, and you can get money. And Poaton's down to take these fights on short notice, but Jamal Hill's a straight-up striker, so it's a good fight for him. Fighting a guy like Khalil Roundtree is a straight-up striker. That's a good fight for him. If he was to step up to heavyweights, almost certainly would be against somebody that's likely going to stand in front of him, unless they give him, the straight title shot. He knows how to select and choose when he's going to compete, and hopefully these guys are going to be stand-up fighters. But Ankalaev presents the problem. Yeah, he can stand with them and probably does okay. Doesn't beat him standing, but does okay. But his ability to get the fight to the ground. So when you look at who's the clear number 2 in the division, it's Magomed Ankalaev. When you hear who Poaton's talking about fighting, it's, I might go back down to 185. I might go to heavyweight. He's not ever, at no point, mentioning Ankalaev. And when he does, it's always not fighting that guy. He needs to earn it. Not fighting that guy. Let him fight somebody else first. So because we've got a full year to operate with, this will work in the beginning. But at some point, you just can no longer deny Magomed Ankalaev. They're just going to have to give him the fight. And at that point, yeah, if I'm holding a plus 190 Magomed Ankalaev ticket, I'd be pretty satisfied with that. So I could see Pereira still being the champ at the end of the year, but because he's looking for these big action fights and flirting with the idea of bouncing between weight classes, I'm not fully confident that he's holding the strap 100%. Whereas Ankalaev, I just don't know that they'll be able to deny him for another 12 months. At some point, he's going to have to get a fight, whether it's for an interim title or whatever the case is. By the way, beware on that. Some of these books don't pay you if it's an interim title. It has to be the full title. So just totally beware on that.
I'm sure it's probably in the rules there.
Yeah. Just not every book is going to have it, but you're going to want to have a look, because some of these weight classes, the guy's just not willing to vacate. Like if John Jones wins it, he's not just going to vacate the title. So he's going to be full status champion. And even though Tom Aspinall could be the best guy, or somebody else comes in, or whatever the case may be, it's always just going to be an interim title. You could just get screwed on like the wording of a bet, which would be a terrible way to lose one. But anyways, going back to the light heavyweight division, the only other guy I see off the board, and I know you disagree with this one, is Jamal Hill, plus 700. I know what you're saying. He just got smoked by Pereira, so why run the thing back? And you're not totally wrong on that, but there's a good storyline there. Like, the guy's talking all types of delusional nonsense. He's approaching him at the PI. He wants it back. And Jamal Hill's a good fighter. Thing is he ruptured his Achilles tendon, took a year and a half off, accepts his Poaton fight on short notice, a UFC 300, comes in out of shape, quickly gets knocked out, and then it's like, oh, you're written off. So now what it is, it's that still Jamal Hill, probably, hopefully, a little healthier, but with a chip on his shoulder. Like, he's pissed off. I don't like the guy personally. I mean, he kind of rubs me the wrong way, for being honest with you, but he's a very talented fighter, and he's got a chip on his shoulder, and that's a dangerous thing. He wants to smoke. He wants to fight all the big guys. He wants to fight Yuri Prochazka, and he's going to fight Yuri Prochazka early into the year. So if he goes out there and knocks out Yuri, which he is capable of doing, then again, that sets him up as like the number 2 or 3 guy. Poaton, 100% would rather run back the rematch with Jamal Hill than fight Magomed Ankalaev.
Yeah.
So if the UFC approaches him with that idea, what do you want to do? Well, this guy thinks I got lucky the first time. Let's run it back. Because that's a better option to stand and bang with a guy than fight a mean Russian dude, right? So So the fact that Hill is a scenario where he beats Yuri quick and then he's got a full 8 or 9 months here to operate with to either get another win and jump into a title fight or just jump into the title fight. Because it's striker versus striker, he could potentially clip him. You can't say Poatan got lucky the first time. No, he didn't get lucky, but all of the bounces were kind of in his favor. Everything was going in his favor. He was already in camp. He was already getting ready for this high-profile fight. He didn't have this injury. He wasn't coming off this year-long layoff, and he catches a guy. You run that back a second time, Poatan might still beat him, but it would be a lot more competitive than that first outing. So the fact that he can get himself into that fight, the fact that he can make a fight like that competitive at plus 700, I think you could do worse. Other scenario is that Ankalaev does get the fight with Poatan, and he just takes him down and he out-grapples him and he beats him. Fair.
He doesn't do that to anybody, though.
I know, but let's say he does. Then who becomes
He would have to try, I think, against Pereira. But the UFC hates Ankalaev.
Yeah,
I think that's why I'm scared of like making a bet, because like he's Russian, doesn't speak a lick of English, he's not particularly like charming or anything. It doesn't seem like he obviously deserves to have these opportunities, but they've denied him over and over. His fights have not been overly exciting a lot of the times, and like it just seems like they are doing everything in their power not to give him that opportunity, because they know he's very, very likely to win. Like him against Pereira, like what are the odds? Like if they are matched up against each other, I have to think like maybe there is even odds for like a future potential fight between the two of them. Let me just flip over to that right now.
Well, while you're flipping to that, what I would say is that the same situation came up with Merab Dvalishvili. The UFC did not want him as the champion. All of his fights go to decision, and even though they're exciting, they just didn't want him as their champ. So they denied him the chance over and over. And then finally, it's like, hey, Sean O'Malley's the champ. Everybody in the world believes that Merab Dvalishvili is a better fighter and would beat him. I suppose I can't say everybody in the world. The odds were surprisingly kind of tight. What I'm saying is that you have a guy that's the champion, and then the best guy in the world is his, number one challenger. And instead of giving him the title fight, you give Marlon Chito Vera a fight. Let's run that one back instead of fighting the best guy, because the UFC realizes that that's more lucrative for them. It's better to have Sean O'Malley as the champ because he's got a bigger social media following and he talks all this jazz and he sells pay-per-views and he gets people riled up for the fight. So that's who they want as the champion. So they're willing to protect him. Marlon Vera is a better fight for him, so that's the fight that they're going to put together. Once he beats Marlon Vera, eventually the fans are just drumming up. They're like, hey, like, what about the best guy in the division? You're going to have to fight the boogeyman sooner rather than later. Poatan's actually done a pretty good job of avoiding Ankalaev to this point, but at some point, we've got 12 months to work with here. At some point in the next 12 months, I feel like he's got to put pen to paper. If he doesn't, it would be him leaving the division and vacating the title. He vacates the title. They're going to put the two best guys in the division against each other, which would be Ankalaev and Jamal Hill, let's say. And on that case, well, maybe you're holding an Ankalaev or a Jamal Hill ticket or both. You'd be feeling good about it. Ulberg was the guy you mentioned. Ulberg would have to beat Hill or beat Ankalaev or beat Yuri, which who he's not booked with right now, before he jumps in. He's on a great roll right now, but he's mostly beating mid-card type guys, working his way up slowly. Don't think that he's a factor in the division to win the championship by the end of 2025. Maybe beyond that, his grappling starts to catch up and he puts everything together and he picks up a couple notable wins, and then maybe he talks himself into it. But for right now, I would say your best bets would be Alex Pereira, Magomed Ankalaev, Jamal Hill. Last one there, Khamzat Chimaev, 2026. Totally live. 2026. But yeah, he's got a lot of work to do at 185 first. And because he's already jumped up from 170 to 185, they won't rush him to 205 full out. That's an extra 20 pounds. They'll take their time. So not this year, maybe next year. For this year, Pereira, Ankalaev, or Jamal Hill.
All right, next up. Got the middleweight division. Khamzat, minus 300. It's aggressive. Over on DK, he's minus 200. Drickus, the current champ, plus 400. Plus 120 over on DraftKings. I mean, I guess BetOnline's kind of sharp, but like plus 400, maybe that's how they get you. But it's like current champion, has the heart of a lion, an absolute dog. I mean, don't get me wrong. Khamzat, his last fight out there, just looks like he's on a completely different level, 100%. But is he going to be able to do that to Drickus? Dricus just is an like, I know you've never really, like, loved the guy, but it's like, he's an absolute warrior. Never quits. It looks ugly, but somehow it works. Current champion Dricus plus 400 doesn't look so bad to me. Do you have any faith in like a guy like Caio Barallo, climbing up the ladder, doing enough? The performance against Cannonier was pretty damn impressive. I really didn't think like if he went the full 5 rounds, was able to out volume him, everything like that. Very, very impressive stuff there. Otherwise, I mean, I guess Strickland has a shot right now, but it's like Strickland fights so often, and I think he's been the champion. Like, there's nothing but respect here. But I just don't really. Yeah, if he even if he wins this fight against Dricus coming up, does he retain? Like, does he continue to hold the title all the way through 2025? I think somebody here, somebody in this division. It's going to be a fun year in the middleweight division, but I'd lean on Dricus to be perfectly honest. Plus 400. I guess that it's probably at that number right now because him and Strickland are already booked and that fight's coming up. Like that's what it's got to be. I figure, but Dricus plus 400 seems way too juiced. I expect him to beat Strickland on this run back and probably a little bit more convincingly. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, middleweight's got a ton of tempting options, to be honest with you. Dricus Du Plessis plus 400. I agree that's a great way to start it because, one, again, he's got the title already. So if it was to end the way it starts, you've got that plus 400 ticket. Now, he's got the fight book with Strickland. If he can defend against Sean Strickland, everybody wants to see the Chimaev fight. People are going to be betting minus 300 on Chimaev. Chimaev's not even booked to fight for the title as of this moment.
No.
So there's a lot of weird situations that could arise there. If Sean Strickland beats Dricus Du Plessis, why not run it back a third time because they're 1-1 against each other? And with Chimaev, even though he's the best guy, we all want to see it. That's probably the fight the UFC wants to put together. He's pulled out of so many fights with health-related issues, sicknesses. I wouldn't necessarily say injuries, but just like a lot of sicknesses or health issues or travel issues that I don't know for certain that you can rely on this guy 100% that he's going to be the champ. Championship qualities to him? Yeah, absolutely championship qualities to him. But I minus 300, it's like, yeah, way better than the rest of the division and fighting for the title next week. But in reality, not fighting for the title next week, he needs to wait for a title fight to occur. Then because they're champions, they're going to take 4 months off. If Strickland fights, he may want to fight right away, but he's kind of buddies with Chimaev. He's probably in no rush to put that one together. If Dricus wins, well, Dricus has also pulled out of fights due to injuries in the past. Like, you just don't want this thing getting stalled out and it takes them a year or 2 years to put it together. And then by that point, this 2025 future is already well and done with. So, yeah, Dricus, I think that Dricus is a good option. I think Sean Strickland at plus 900 simply because he's booked. A lot of people thought he beat Dricus the first time around. Close fight. If he goes and wins the fight, plus 900, and he's already the champ, the difference is that Sean Strickland will fight every other week. So he'll fight 3 more times this year. He ain't going to be holding the title by the end of the year. He actually might hold the title at the beginning of it. I just don't think that by the end of the year, he's going to have that strapped around his waist. So 2 interesting options. The best option, I would think, if you're looking to look like an outside, who's from the outside that's got a shot, Caio Barajal, just like you mentioned. He's coming off a fight where he headlined, went 5 rounds, beat, a former title challenger in Jared Cannonier. It was an exciting fight. He didn't even really rely on his grappling all that much. He got it done with the striking. He's young enough at 31 years old. He's from the best gym in Brazil at the moment. He might get a crack at the title in 2025. So that's a good option right there. And then the other thing being is that he's got the type of style that if he was to fight for the title, he can maybe make it happen. If the assumption is that Chimaev, who's minus 300 to win the title, will be the champion, then who are the guys that have a chance at beating Chimaev? Well, the only guys that have a chance in hell at beating Chimaev are people that have really, really good cardio / durability. Like they can fight the 5 rounds. They got excellent submission defense. And that was the other thing you needed was the excellent submission defense. Chimaev's going to take you down. He's going to ragdoll you. I still got my reservations about him being able to do it for 25 minutes. So someone needs to be able to get their ass kicked for 2-3 rounds and then still be in the fight and catch him late. Because Barajal's a high-level BJJ black belt, because he's able to largely neutralize his opponents, I think he probably gets taken down, slows Chimaev down a bit, can make it to the 3rd, 4th, and 5th round, at which point he makes it interesting. Dricus, and you mentioned this already, Paul, that's why he's interesting in a fight with Chimaev, because he's just really durable. He's tough. He's stubborn. He's been submitted once. 11 years ago against Gareth McClellan, if you can believe that. But point being is that he's just a tough piece of leather. You can't put him away early and he's still hanging around those later rounds. That's where he makes it happen. That's where you might be able to expose Chimaev. The other two ones, Fluffy Fernandez, I like it. But he's the same price as Keo Barahau. And
I'd
yet
rather have Kyle.
yes, because Fluffy's still a fight or two behind, and his striking's not as good as Barahau. So I would think that Barahau's got a better chance of getting the fight, first of all, for the championship, and then succeeding in winning the fight. If he's the same odds as Fluffy Hernandez, okay. And then just if you were just throwing darts at a board, it's not on the board, but the fact that they're willing to take some random podcaster and add him to the heavyweight pool, you may be able to message the book. And I like, personally, Jacob Malkoun has a much better chance over.
Come on.
No. Let me just say, he's got a better chance over Jack Hermanson, Michelle Pereira, Shara Magomedov, Paulo Costa, Jared Cannonier, Brandon Allen, who's beaten, Roman Dolitz, or Marvin Vittori. He actually just a way better style. He's not going to get the fight because he's got a boring style and he's not going to jump into that spot, and he's still got to beat a couple guys. Like, I get that logic wise. But if you're looking to bet a Paulo Costa plus 5,000 or a Michelle Pereira plus 8,000, those are just absolutely, if he got the fight, which is never going to happen, he's got no shot. Jacob Malkoun is never going to slow down, okay? He's got cardio for days. If they ever book him in a 5-round fight, which they, because he's not very popular, he doesn't talk all the smack, yeah, they don't book him in those spots, but all the same, man. BJJ black belt, good competition experience, gas tank for days, chain wrestling, which ain't great, but he's a dog on a bone. He just keeps gassing you. That in theory, if Chimaev is the champ and Chimaev just beats on this guy for a round and a half, 2 rounds, 3 rounds, doesn't put him away, Malcolm's one of those guys that'll still be in the game. Brandon Allen's not going to be in the game after 2 rounds of getting beating. He got no heart. Jared Cannonier's 41 years old. Jack Hermanson's probably not going to fight a top 10 guy this year. Don't bet those guys. Malkoun, who I know, you'd get plus 10,000 on him for a good reason. He's better than those other guys, man. Guarantee it. Plus, if you shoot a takedown on him, you might just knock yourself out because we've seen it happen before. This guy's got cast iron hips, baby. Sign me up.
It's 250 to 1 on DraftKings Sportsbook. It's up on the screen there right now, Cody. Mamba Malkoun. I wasn't expecting a Mamba Malkoun shout
look
on this episode, but 250. I will say that, like, he has a better chance than a lot of the guys. Like Rodolfo Vieira, great jiu-jitsu, but it's like in a 5-round fight, that guy is like, that is, if he doesn't get a submission, he's dying long before that. Iron Turtle, 250 to 1. Like, you're right. I think Malkoun has a better shot if he were to get the opportunity. I just struggle to see how he gets the opportunity in 2025. But at 250 to 1, you throw a coffee on, depending on what your staking is, whatever. I'm not unit shaming anybody, but it's like, throw a coffee or throw whatever is an insignificant, bus fare or whatever is insignificant to you. Crazier things, I suppose, could happen. Where I live, DraftKings Sportsbook doesn't exist, and Mamba Malkoun not on the board for the people at Bet Online. So it doesn't look like there's any options for me. Looking down the board here, there's some pretty, like, I mean, Eric Andrews is the same price as Malkoun. So
isn't that crazy?
I get where you're coming from, Mike. And then, like, when you get past that, it's like Mikey O 500 to 1. It's just like, there is
absolutely, he's not in the UFC anymore. He's cut.
Did he get cut? Okay. I didn't even know that, but there's absolutely no chance. I mean, Joe Pyfer, he got exposed real bad by Hermanson, but 500 to 1, I guess. If he were able to, like, fight 3-4 times this year and win all of them, maybe, but, like, I don't know. I faded him against Hermanson, so I feel like I would fade him in a whole bunch of those fights if he were to get another path to the UFC title. All right,
I'll leave you with this though. Jacob Malkoun is Robert Whittaker's BJJ coach, so I'd be like, get revenge for Robbie. This guy choked out my pupil. I'm gonna get me some revenge, and then get the fight down under on 24 hours notice. In that scenario, Malkoun walks in. In that scenario, Malkoun live dog, bro. I got a lot of respect for him, man. A lot of respect. It's just, yeah, he would need to fight 2 top challengers right away. and just smash him right away. You can't fight Eric Anders and then wait 4 months and then fight Jung Young Park and then wait 5-6 more months and then fight RoboCop Gregory Rodriguez. That's wasting your time. You'd have to go big game hunting right off the get-go. But I think he's got big game skills. People say he's boring. Sure, boring aside. People that have been dominant in the sport have boring styles. Malkoun's one of them. I think he's, talented. Best guy in the division, bit of a stretch. But if you're getting plus 500, plus 250, that kind of madness, he's a lot better than the other guys they're offering you up.
All right, welterweight division codes. Shavkat plus 150. Bilal plus 225. Joaquin Buckley plus 550. Ian Gary plus 700. Leon Edwards, Jack Della. It's an interesting time in the division here. Over on DraftKings, Carlos Prates. This guy's just, I think it's because he smokes darts. Big fan of everything he's doing right here. Is he a little bit green? Is he a bit inexperienced? He's been running through absolutely everybody, and the guy seems to want to fight a whole bunch. He's 50-1 over on DraftKings Sportsbook. If I had access to that, I may tickle that number, to be perfectly honest. But I don't know. At the top of the board, like I feel like Buckley's about to get a shot after coming off of that win over Colby. Very, very dominant win over Colby. Gary, they've been trying to build him up for a long time. So, he just lost to Shavkat though, so it's like he's got to stay really busy to get back into the saddle. Shavkat plus 150. Rightful fave. But it's a very, very tricky division to know what's going to happen by the end of this year, I would say. That's why I'm like, I think if you had gun to my head and I had to play anything over on DraftKings Sportsbook, Carlos Prates 50-1. Maybe this guy just like knocks 3 people's heads off. Every 3 months he knocks somebody's head off and then gets a title shot in December of next year. 50-1, I would take a shot on Carlos Prates, but that's where I'm at here. The top of the board kind of scares me. I don't know. I wouldn't bet Gary at 7-1. I don't think he'll be getting back there. What about you?
Yeah, I possibly disagree with that one. I think Gary at plus 700 is not terrible value. Only reason I say that is the odds-on favorite to be the champ by the end of the year is Shavkat Rakhmonov. He's the odds-on favorite currently on the board. So that Gary just fought him in a pretty close and competitive fight, that Gary had moments. I don't think it's the type of fight you're looking to run back right away. But if Rakhmonov beats Bilal Muhammad, then who's his top challenger? It's not really a somebody that's jumping at it as a forefront leader. So Gary needs to probably win 2 fights maybe, and then because he already has a bit of history with Rakhmonov, he could jump into it. If Bilal Muhammad fights Rakhmonov and Bilal Muhammad wins, well, now he needs fresh challengers, and all of a sudden Gary, who is competitive against Rakhmonov, who previously had an undefeated record, who's talks a big game and is a marketable type guy. All possible. Now, keep in mind, Ian Gary's 27 years old. So when you look at the board, it's a lot of older guys. Like Rakhmonov's not old, but he certainly ain't young. Bilal Muhammad's 36. Leon Edwards is 33. Kamaru Usman's 39. And Gilbert Burns is 40. There's a lot of older guys that are currently, in the talks of who's going to be the champ at the end of the year. I would say Ian Gary's by far younger than them. If he was able to have that type of performance versus Shavkat Rakhmonov last year, then give this guy another 6 months, 8 months, 10 months, 11 months, just anything over 12, you're going to lose on your ticket. He's going to make a lot of improvements. He's just got to go and showcase those improvements, pick up a signature victory, and he's going to be able to talk himself right back into the situation. Now, when Gary talks about fights, he's always like, I'm not fighting anybody ranked below me. That's his whole thing, and that's why he doesn't want to fight Joaquin Buckley and has turned him down 10 times. He's refusing to fight anybody ranked below him. Well, he's ranked like number 4 in the division. So he's not going to accept anybody in the 7th, 8th range. He's either going to fight Buckley, beat him. He's in a title fight. He fights Jack Maddalena. He beats him. He's probably in a title fight. If he fights Leon Edwards and he can beat him, he's in a title fight. So the path back for Ian Gary's not crazy. It's just he needs to go big game hunting and pick up one of those signature victories. The other one I like is Bilal Muhammad plus 225. Like, if you run Bilal Muhammad versus Shavkat Rakhmonov right now, I think Bilal beats him. I really do. I think he's got the wrestling to at least certainly keep the fight standing versus Rakhmonov. He's got better cardio. He's got better pace. You know, what he did to Leon Edwards, he could largely do to Shavkat. Shavkat's coming over a close fight to Ian Gary. Well, I think Bilal Muhammad's got a few things to teach him. But two things with Bilal Muhammad holding on to the title by the end of the year is, one, he's getting older, man. Like, somebody is gonna flip the script on him at some point, and his body's not exactly holding up. So the UFC's got no patience with him. He doesn't finish people. He's a boring champion, as Paul and I talked about earlier. They didn't give Merab the fight right away. They didn't give Bilal Muhammad the fight right away. When these guys win, well, that's who the champion is. And the UFC's dying to get them out of there. You could defend the title 4, 5, 6 times in a row. The second you lose it, there's no immediate rematch. You're gone. They're going to try somebody else. They want to get some fresh blood in. So he's coming off this like foot infection, almost lost a toe, pulled out of the fight. If he pulls out of one more fight, they're just going to flat out strip him. If he fights Rakhmonov and he wins and then he pulls out of the next one, he could get stripped. If he pulls out of his next fight, he probably does get stripped. At 36 and they have short patience with him, it might be hard to hold on to the title by the end of the year. And then if you're going off the board, Carlos Paredes, I get that one. But Leon Edwards, plus 800, literally just was the champion. He had a close enough fight with Bilal Muhammad, the champ. They didn't want to run it back. Fair enough. But you would imagine that former champion status, he's probably still one win away from getting back into it. And if he can get back into it, Leon Edwards is a world-class operator, the guy that could go out there and defeat somebody on his best night. He could defeat anybody in the division. So plus 800 Edwards to get the title back in 2025. Not crazy. Ian Gary plus 700. I don't think it's crazy. I feel like Edwards plus 800 may be a little bit better of a bet, but Shavkat, I feel like Shavkat loses to Bilal and then beats everybody else in the division. Problem is Bilal's the champ. Bilal beats Shavkat, but he's not looking to fight 2-3 times in the year, and that's what's going to be required of him. Bilal beats Buckley. Bilal beats Gary. Bilal beats Leon Edwards, as we already know. Bilal definitely beats Jack Maddalena. Kamaru Usman, super interesting, but his knees aren't there anymore. So, listen, this is a bit of a mess of a division, to be honest with you. But I think my money here would be on Bilal Muhammad to end up with the title by the end of the year. Or if you're looking to take a long shot, Leon Edwards or Ian Gary.
Fair enough. All that talk about 50-1 on protest got me lighting up my own fire, daddy here, Cody.
Oh, we're having a protest smoke. All right, I might
okay. in honor of like my new like favorite fighter, like the guy who just kind of showed up from on the scene and just like all of a sudden I'm like, I love this guy.
He makes smoking cool.
He makes smoking great again. All right, yeah, welterweight's gonna be an interesting division this year. It was a little bit stagnant for a while with Usman and Covington and just them basically just fighting each other, and then Leon came in, so things could get a little bit shaken up, and we're here for that. Let's move to the lightweight division. We've got obviously the champ's fighting what this month? In a couple weeks.
Islam Makhachev, yeah.
Islam Makhachev is the champ. I'm just looking on Bet Online since that one's the one that's already shared here. He's minus 175 over on DK Sportsbook. I bet you he's more chalky. Where's the lightweight division?
It's not there.
Heavyweight.
I looked at it last night though.
Not on the board. They're scared.
No, it was
They're
there.
scared.
It was there last night because I looked, and Islam Makhachev was minus 250, and that's the only one I put down. I think he's the champ by the end of the year. Like
I struggle to see anybody beat him. I'll push it over to the other screen share here, while I talk through the board. But we've got Arman Sarukian, obviously, who's fighting him. He's plus 400. There we go. Charles Do Bronx Oliveira plus 600. Ilya Topuria 8-1. I guess super fight situation. Topuria's been absolutely crushing, but it's like there's still so many contenders in that division that do they really have to force? Maybe an end of the year if like both of these guys go 3-0, 2-0. Could be an end of the year type of thing where they have a super fight between Ilya and Islam. So I guess you could lock in maybe an Ilya versus Islam at 8-1 ticket. I guess that would be the idea there. And then as you move down the board, like Holloway, Moicano, Hooker, Poirier, Kazayev, none of these guys really, really interest me at this point. Paddy Pimblett's been on a nice little run, but I don't see this guy turning or getting to the title by any stretch of the imagination. Um, yeah, I mean it's Makachev, isn't it? Makachev or bust. Like, is anybody beating this guy?
Yeah, no, I agree. I think if you were trying to play contrarian, I don't mind Charles Oliveira, and it's not because he's going to beat Islam Makhachev. It would be in hopes that Makhachev beats Sarukian, and then Makhachev moves up to 170. Makhachev versus Bilal Muhammad would be a fine fight. The only thing prohibiting that is I know Bilal Muhammad has trained with Khabib in the past, so I don't know if there's some type of friendship. But Makhachev's a big guy, and it seems like they're hinting towards him maybe going up at some point. And they also say he's got like 2 fights left in his career. So I don't doubt, he beat Volk because Volk went up. I don't doubt that he decides I'm going to go up and try 170 pounds, 2-weight world-class world champion, retire off that. So he doesn't fight a whole lot as it is. The division's a bearing wasteland. He'll fight Sarukian, which is not even a fight anybody asked for. The rematch, nobody asked for. It's just there's nobody there. Justin Gaethje, he's not fighting for the title. You crazy? Poirier, he's not going to fight for the title. Gamrot, he's not going to fight for the title. Money Moicano, because he's on a 4-fight winning streak, yeah. But he'd still have to take out 2 of those guys above him, and that's a bit of a stretch, right? Oliveira, his key here is that he's coming off a very competitive fight with Sarukian. So if Sarukian could shock the world, Oliveira could talk himself into that rematch. Why not? 5 rounds for the title? Sign me up. If Sarukian loses and Makhachev vacates, then Sarukian's coming off a loss, so he's out of the talks. Charles and who? Who would Charles fight for the vacant title? Money Moicano? You know what I mean? So in that scenario, if Makhachev vacates to move up, Charles, because he's long shot odds, could maybe work himself into a vacant title fight or a fight with the number 2 guy or the number 3 guy, and he may be able to win that fight. So yeah, listen, that was a stretch. I actually think Makhachev at minus 250 is probably the best bet. But if you're worried about him leaving the division,
minus 175.
Even better than Bet Online. No wonder they pulled their board down with those bum prices. My God. Minus 175. Yeah. I think Makhachev is still the champ at the end of 2025. I know we're talking about other divisions. Is there going to be and news and who are going to be the and news? Makhachev is leaps and bounds better than the rest of this division. And he doesn't even need to technically, he doesn't have to vacate to go up to 170. He could still be the lightweight champ, move up to 170 and hold 2 of them for a period of time. So yeah, minus 170, minus 175, 200 range. Makhachev to retain the championship and be the champ by the end of the year. I think that's probably the play here.
Yeah, I think the only other outlier would be like Topuria, and then you're hoping like a super fight. Okay, we've got. Oh, I didn't mean to click on the featherweight division like that. Featherweight. Ilia Topuria minus 175, Evloev plus 200, Diego Lopez plus 400, Alexander Volkanovski 8-1, Holloway 10-1, Yair 30-1. As we kind of sprinkle through the board, is there anybody? You know me, I'm such a degenerate. Is Gian Silva just such a cannon that like maybe the guy fights like 4 or 5 times this year. Maybe I just have like a fighting nerd's heart on now. I used to hate Borrello. Now I'm kind of coming around to him. I love Carlos Prates. Gian Silva makes it move for me these days. 200-1. I could see a world. I could see a world where that happens. But like, I mean, the champion Ilia Topuria has been so damn dominant right now. Stepping in front of that train seems pretty freaking scary. Evloev, even against that in that Aljo fight. I mean, Aljo was right in that fight. That was damn competitive. So I really don't think anybody has a chance because like Ilya is just so complete right now. Has great grappling, great striking. It's like outside of getting rocked by Jai Herbert, there hasn't been any sort of blemishes. So that's why I'm saying, like, in an absolutely crazy, out of control type of world, maybe a guy like John Silva becomes some sort of like breakout star, just knocks everyone's damn head off, um, and gets a shot. Maybe on like a short notice, someone pulls out, and he's kind of like in a contender type of situation. A lot would have to happen, but at 200 to 1, I think like that's how I would approach it. Outside of, I think Ilya very very clearly, I think continues to reign supreme over this division. Your thoughts?
I think Ilya Topuria is the champ by the end of the year. I mean, again, it's kind of, I wouldn't say a thin division. It's that Movsar Evloev will get the shot. If he can beat Evloev, then he's already defeated Alexander Volkanovski. I don't think they're rushing to run that thing back again. And then who are not Arnold Allen, not Aljamain Sterling, not Max Holloway, not any of those guys, not Brian Ortega. So Ilya Topuria is just a lot better than those guys. If any of them do get inserted into the fight, he likely beats them. I think he could be the champ by the end of the year. If you want to go off the board, on this one, Paul? You're going to have to bear with me a little bit. Yusuf Zalal. What can you get him on DraftKings? He's plus 4,000 on BetOnline.
Ooh, sorry, I had to step away for a half second there to the little loop in the back that had ran out. So
yeah.
Yeah, but you want Yusuf Zalal. I heard that. I got back in time just to do that. Is he even listed?
Yeah, he would be my off the board pick. Here's my reasoning. The Moroccan Devil is still really young. I mean, comes from his striking prowess, but you've noticed in his last number of fights, he's not using his striking at all anymore. His jiu-jitsu is phenomenal. I mean,
not even listed.
Yeah, not even listed. So maybe you'd have to message DraftKings and be like, what's up, what's up? BetOnline does have him at plus 4,000. But there's a very plausible scenario here. One, the kid really likes to fight. He'll fight 3-4 times in the year if they give him the opportunity.
Four or five times, or three times in a night during that tournament, right?
Fought 3 times in one single night. One was a pro boxing match, one's a pro kickboxing match, and one's a pro MMA fight. Wins all 3 of them in a single night to be crowned the king of Sparta, and then jumps into the UFC, short notice, return, and fights Billy Quarantillo and chokes him out. First person to submit Billy Quarantillo, and just absolutely buzzsawed him. He's already fought Ilya Topuria in his first run in the UFC. It's actually Ilya Topuria's debut. And a lot of people still reference that fight as one of Topuria's tougher fights. Topuria wins the first 2 rounds, and then the 3rd round, he's tired, man. He's absolutely tired. This kid was able to hang in there with him and do some damage. Unfortunately, he definitely loses the fight, and he gets cut from the UFC a short time later. Works his way back up, still young, works his way back up, and now he's kind of on a tear right now. The fact that he wants to stay active means 2025 could, in theory, be a very big year, breakout year for him. He needs to go out there and get those signature victories right away. But when you look at this board, most notably, Brian Ortega, Lerone Murphy, or Diego Lopez would put him in excellent position. When you look at your betting board on DraftKings, Diego Lopez would be the number 4th ranked guy, most plausible to end up with the title. So he's right in the mix. He's on a long tear. He's got a ton of hype right now. Yusuf Zalal's got the type of grappling that he could thwart off all those submission attempts and beat him standing. You can go and beat a guy like Lerone Murphy, then beat a guy like Diego Lopez. You're right in the talks. You've already fought the guy. You're competitive, won the 3rd round over him. Why not run it back as a 5-round title fight? The rest of the division, it's old storylines. Yusuf Zalal jumping in there as this kid that got cut from the UFC, worked his way back up, went on a winning streak. He'd have to, in this scenario, beat 2 good guys like Murphy and Diego Lopez, and then jump into that fight. Absolutely plausible. Number 2 is that if Topuria realizes, hey, none of these big fights are big, and fighting Yusuf Zalal again does absolutely nothing for me, nor is it going to be a big fat paycheck, he may vacate and leave the division. He's talking about going to 155. He could do a super fight with Makhachev. He could go after the big dollars. If he leaves, then Movsar Evloev fights Diego Lopez, or Alexander Volkanovski fights Movsar Evloev. But there's going to be room for somebody to inject themselves in as fresh blood, come in as a betting underdog, and pull off the victory. You seen with Brendan Raw Dog Royval, going through some spurts and he loses some fights. And then once the guy dials in, his scrambles are top notch. His grappling is top notch. His cardio is top notch. And Zalal mimics a lot of that. Plus, he does have that striking background that I mentioned. So, again, you're going off the board on this one, but you look at a lot of those bums that are listed and have price tags. Don't piss your money away. UFC Zalal's actually got a legitimate chance, and the odds, long shot odds, sure, but the type of guy that could work his way into the spot and then could capitalize if he was in the spot. And those are the kind of guys you're looking to lay that money on. So, yeah, I would take Yusuf Zalal as my long shot play at 145. And then logical play, yeah, probably Topuria. Don't get me wrong, guys proven to be the absolute goods.
Gian Silva 200 to 1.
Yeah, that was not crazy too because he's a banger, but he's got to do
Just because he hits hard. Like,
go knock off Max Holloway and knock off Aljamain Sterling, and then you're in for sure, buddy. You're in. You'll get the fight
for sure. All right, let's go to the bantamweight division. Obviously, we've got the belt up for grabs next week. Merab versus Cousin Umar. Kind of surprised. Like we'll talk about it on that preview show on Dogger Pass. Obviously next week, but kind of surprised with like how much the steam has been coming in on Cousin Umar. You know, I love my Cousin Umar. I think they have pulled it off the board at DraftKings or at the Bet Online here as well. They're just pulling things off the board. Look at them.
Yeah, they must have known the show was coming out, Paul. And they were like,
did you send them a tip, Cody? A hot tip? Because I saw there was a big disparity. I was looking at it last night actually. There's a big disparity because we'll pull back up over onto DraftKings because they're the only ones who have anything listed. Because like there was a big disparity in this division. Like Merab is plus 130 versus Umar minus 120 right now on this, but it's like I think Merab was like over 3 to 1, which is like kind of in line with like where the money line is for their matchup right now. I love Cousin Umar, and I think obviously Merab's style. Like we're gonna talk about it in a week, maybe break down the fight a little bit more. But as this number kind of expands, it's like I've never looked at Umar as being like as good of a wrestler. I think he's just a better striker than like Khabib and Islam. He's got good wrestling. He's with a good crew of guys. But like Merab's style, the pace that he sets on people, like I think you could do a lot worse than his money line. So yeah, like in terms of futures, I mean at plus 130, there's absolutely no way I would absolutely touch that. Are there anybody down the board? Peyton Talbot, 65 to 1. I'd be interested to see what they do at Bet Online when they put him back up there. If you were looking for an outlier, that's a guy that I'd be considering. Maybe, I mean, he looks like he's living in the freaking Matrix right now, and he's young. A few big wins, few big knockouts. He could be maybe knocking on the door. But yeah, like I'll end up betting Merab next week at like plus 300 for his money line. I love Cousin Umar, but I think I'm going to fade him. What's your take on this division? The forecast, the Cody Saftic forecast for 2025.
Yeah, I mean, Merab Dvalishvili plus 275. You'll never see that again. I mean, I get it's a year-end prop, but Merab is just an absolute tank, man. Like, he's fought everybody in the division, and he's thrashed them. Fought Peter Yan, and he absolutely thrashed him. He fought Jose Aldo, and he beat him standing. Wasn't able to take him down. Beat him standing. I mean, Merab's the complete package, and I don't think he's too far old or he's over the hill or anything like that. I do feel like he'll still have a good competitive 12 months. Umar's the number one contender. Umar's the best guy. If he beats Umar, which, like you said, they're fighting very shortly here. If he beats him, then it's clear sailing the rest of the year. Got the top guy out of there. If he loses, he still has the rest of the year to win a fight or two, maybe get himself a rematch, some type of, fight of that nature. I just feel like, to me, he's how I would want a guy to fight. His cardio is the best in the whole sport. And that's the biggest weapon that you can use in fighting is your ability to fight the full 25 minutes, pedal to the metal the entire time. Merab does that. The second best thing about winning fights in the sport is wrestling. And Merab has proven that his wrestling is better than anybody's. Even in those fights where he doesn't necessarily take down Jose Aldo, or he went over 39 in takedown attempts against Aldo, I'm pretty sure. Even in those spots, it doesn't matter, man. It's cage control. It's just causing you to work. It's causing you to address his hands and break the grip. And all of a sudden he punches you in the face and he's back on a low single. Like it's a system overload. Your brain is constantly trying to react to things. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. Nurmagomedov is going to be ready to go in there. But unfortunately, it's him going in there. It's not his cousin Khabib. And you've seen with other guys that were Khabib trainees, pupils, Tagir Ulanbekov. These guys are wicked good wrestlers, man. Like wicked good. But they're not Khabib. Khabib's himself for a reason. He's the greatest of all time for a reason. And maybe he's not the greatest of all time. He's in the discussion. And that means a lot in this sport because there's been a lot of great fighters. The fact is that when the cage door shuts, is they can get you prepped up, but you've got to be your own guy. Islam Makhachev proved to be the guy. How many guys will be able to replicate that exact same style? Russia does an awesome job of producing them, but not everybody. This is a wicked good fight, but Muradovashvili is built like your quintessential Russian fighter, only he just happens to be from a former USS Soviet state instead, Georgia. I think the guy's the goods, man. He wants to fight everybody. He wants to take the big fights. This is a tough fight coming ahead of him. If he beats this one, I don't see any of the division having any trouble for him or being any trouble for him. Who's he fighting against? Peter Yan? Okay, roll that one back. Corey Sandhagen, roll that one back. Roll those guys against him. See what happens. He's just, the big one is ahead of him. If he can clear that, he's good to go. Plus 275, I think that's very generous. A lot of these champs to retain at the end of the year is, closer to even money. If not, they're the favorite to have their title by the end of the year. In this instance, I think Muradovashvili defends this title as many times as he needs to or pleases, and goes down as one of the greats in the sport's history. So Muradovashvili plus 275, that would be my bet.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think 275 is even up at anywhere right now as we record, but it was definitely up there last night. And sounds like we're both betting him next week. I actually, full disclosure, I put a little bit of money on him. Like, I think it was plus 175. So I got a terrible price on it. And I've seen this number move, and I'm like, I guess I'm going to end up with more on him. I was surprised to see where the market's moving. I get it. Nurmagomedov bonus, everything like that. But Merab's style is just kind of a new puzzle that nobody's really been able. The cardio is off the chain. The output, the volume is just so overwhelming. We saw it with Peter Yan. It's Yan never really was able to get off because he was literally just defending constantly for 25 minutes, defending takedowns and short little shovel hooks and stuff like that. It's just the guy's just he's just on you, like white on rice, as they say. So it sounds like we're betting our boy next week. It sounds like. All right, flyweight division. We got Pantoja plus 100. The champ is here. Plus 150 over on BetOn. BetOnline does have some better numbers than DraftKings Sportsbook for a lot of this stuff, to be perfectly honest. The hold seems to be a little bit less because they don't have to pay taxes. So yeah, he's plus one. I'll switch that back over to the BetOnline. So the prices are better. Probably they're more available to me. I can't even bet on DraftKings Sports, but you could in Ontario. I don't know if you have an account there, but yeah, Pantoja plus 150, Manel Kape plus 550, Brandon Royval 600, Kai Kara France 700, Moreno 900, Tatsuro Taira plus 1,000, Kaya Zakura 16-1. I mean, now we're getting into none of these. I know this division. Steve Ursig 33-1 is not crazy. That fight with Pantoja was razor close. 50-1 over on DraftKings. What's going on with that number? Because he was literally one bad decision away from getting the belt against Pantoja there. Got taken down. It saved me a whole bunch of money. Because I was heavy on Pantoja there. And Ursig showed up to battle. I mean, the fights in this division are historically just always so close. But yeah, Ursig being way down the board like that seems kind of crazy to me. I think he would be my favorite bet on the board outside of the champion. But we know this division. It's just these fights outside of Demetrius Johnson, it's the belt just kind of gets passed around so much over the course of UFC that it's very, very likely to change hands. I would struggle to see Kaya Zakura getting another chance after he got absolutely mollywopped by Pantoja. I don't know. I think my favorite bet, Cody, on the board is Ursig. Pantoja, I guess I expect to have the belt, but crazier things have happened. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't like Usyk. I love Usyk. I don't like him to get the title because he loses to Pantoja, a really good fight, and then he gets knocked out by Kai Kara France. So he's just been knocked down. Yeah, he's been knocked down too many pegs that I don't see him getting the fight this year, certainly.
I wish you cut me off.
No, all good. Kai Kara France inheriting that spot from Steve Usyk certainly makes him a contender. Again, you mentioned this at Flyweight. You just need to get the fight. The fact is that Usyk is plus 3,300 to be the champ. He damn near was the champ. That's how crazy this division is. So you need to figure who's going to fight for the title, and then any of them can beat him. Kai Kara France could beat Pantoja. Manel Kopp on his absolute best day, crazy good game plan that he actually sticks to, could in theory beat him. Almost did actually in his UFC debut. Brandon Royval, he's already fought Pantoja, but it was actually really close. Brandon Moreno's fought him, but it was a split decision loss. All of these guys, if Davidson Figueiredo dropped down to 125 pounds, you don't think he could knock him out with one of them left hands? Of course. Just got to get into the fight. So Kai Kara France to be logical because I do think that they're going to push him into the fight. But for my money's worth, I'm actually going with Brandon Moreno plus 900. So Moreno, former champion, got tenure in the division. He's already had the publicity and the markability and champion from Mexico. He's already had all that. Loses the title, and they've been very, very close fights. He lost a split decision to Alexander Pantoja. He had basically just fought Figueiredo over and over again, fought the guy 4 times. Okay. Now, Kai Kara France, we're talking about him stealing Steve Usyk's mojo. Well, Brandon Moreno beat him, right? You talk about Brandon Royval, he's the number 3 guy. Well, Brandon Moreno beat him. The current champion, Alexander Pantoja, he loses a split decision to him. They fought, 3 times? He fought him on The Ultimate Fighter. He fought him in his UFC debut, and he fought him for the title. So there's tons of history there. He fought Figueiredo 4 times. They're going to talk his way into a Pantoja fight again. But he fully admits after he loses the fight to Brandon Royval, the rematch, he loses a split decision to him. First time, Royval hurts himself. Second time, Moreno loses a split. He's like, man, I just fell out of love with the game. He could have won that fight, lost a split. No urgency, didn't fight like himself, says he needs to take time off, comes back from time off and beats Albazi. So now he snaps his losing streak. He's still former champion. He's still young. He's got all those good storylines. It's a thin enough division that all he needs to do is just win one more. He can get another fight with Pantoja. If Pantoja loses the fight, they need now a number 1 contender. Brandon Moreno becomes that number 1 contender. So by the end of the year, it's crazy to me that Brandon Moreno would fight 3 more times and none of them would be title fights. This is a guy they're looking to utilize in big spots. Albazi was seen as a top contender. He beat Albazi. Albazi's got a win over Kai Kara France. You can see there's a lot of MMA math going on here. The bottom line is Brandon Moreno's got wins over all of them. So I find it hard to believe that he won't get a title fight this year. If he gets that title fight, it's flyweight. He can win it. Him at his best, he can win it. Lost a split to Pantoja the last time. Why not have 2 judges side with you this time instead of 1? So I think at plus 900, you could do worse than taking a Brandon Moreno filler. The other one, way off the board, you're going to think this one's crazy because you know me. But Alexander Muhammad Makayev at plus 3,300. Sounds crazy. I know. But just keep in mind here. So this is a guy that's undefeated, has this long ass 30 fight winning streak. So
he's not in the organization.
I know. This is the beauty, is that you have a whole year to operate with. And anyways, sorry to get myself derailed there. Makayev gets cut from the UFC. He doesn't get cut from the UFC. He basically says, I want some money. They're like, we don't like your style. He fights Manel Kopp. They release him. Keep in mind, when you look at your board, who's the number 2 best odd guy there, right? Is Manel Kopp, who Makayev has a win over, right? And yet he's no longer with the promotion. Had he still been with the promotion, it's not crazy to think that he's the number 2 or 3 ranked guy in the organization. The UFC parts ways with him. There's been a lot of interest from other promotions, but no one's pulled the trigger. UFC hasn't outright said, we will not bring this guy back. They're just trying to teach him a lesson by cutting him. So he goes to Brave CF. He anaconda chokes a guy in 45 seconds. They've got another fight booked for him. He's going to sub that guy real quick. He'll probably win another 2-3 fights. At some point, you've got an undefeated Russian fighter on a 35 fight winning streak dating back to his amateur days. It's just too hard to deny that the UFC will be like, we don't have any flyweight contenders. We just brought in Kai Asakura from Ryzen for no other reason than we don't got anybody. They're going to eventually be like, you know what? Let's bring in Makayev. And in that instance, you're bringing in a big free agent signing, this undefeated guy who talked all this shit. Now is his chance to back it up. He was very vocal that he wanted to fight for the title before getting released. They'll just instantly throw him right into the title mix. So he doesn't even have to go into the UFC and beat one of the top contenders. They'll just throw him right in there. That scenario works in that they could throw him in with Pantoja, or if Pantoja loses the title to a Brandon Moreno, or if he was to lose the title to a Kai Kara France, then Makayev could still come in and fight one of those guys. So it's plus 3,300. And if you were to look at the global rankings of the sport, he's within the top 5 of the global rankings of the sport, and he's plus 3,300. Why? Because he's not under contract. But if he gets the contract, he could get thwarted into there. And we're going to wrap this stuff up. I'm sure people don't care about the women's MMA divisions, which we'll cover. We're going to cover it just a little quicker. But just to give you a little bit of, foreshadowing, Dakota Dachiva is not listed. Okay. But if you can find a number on her, she's the exact same thing. She's with PFL. PFL can't pay her any money. They don't have fights lined up for her. They're going to release her from her contract. The UFC is going to sign her. She's going to get instantly throttled in against Valentina Shevchenko, or she'll fight the number 1 contender and then get a fight with Valentina Shevchenko. So if you can get plus 3,000, plus 4,000, plus 5,000 for Dakota Dachiva from PFL, all she needs is the UFC contract, and she's live, baby, because she's one of the best fighters in the world in that weight class. So Makayev is very similar to that. They're not within the organization right now, but within the next 12 months, very plausible that they will be. And if they are fast-tracked because they're both thin divisions. I love Aaron Pico. If the UFC was to sign him, he still needs to win 3-4 fights. These are divisions where you do not need to do that. If you were some great heavyweight free agent signing and you can just come in and beat Jairzinho Rozenstruik and Sergey Pavlovich, you're in. If you're some great featherweight or bantamweight signing, you got to go through murder's row. You got to beat 3 guys before they give you guys like Rob Font at 135, and he's a badass. The division is absolutely stacked. So women's 125, very easy to get fast-tracked. Men's 125, very easy to get fast-tracked. I think Makayev and Dachiva are live to do both of those things, and you got 12 months to hopefully let that come to fruition.
Make some good points. Dachiva was actually that fight, that win over Tyler Santos.
She's so good, man. She's so good.
That was a real okay.
She's real hot too.
We knew that
they're gonna fast track.
you saw they did a good job of moving her along, but then she got up to Tyler Santos, and my God, she was actually bettable in that fight, and she absolutely crushed her, man. It was somebody who went the full distance against Valentina Shevchenko and handled herself very, very well. So it's putting up that type of performance was just real. It's just okay, this is where the future of this sport is going. The future is going to be clearly with Dakota Dachiva. Impressive stuff. We will see more of her. All right, we'll go to the women's bantamweight division here. We got Kyla Harrison minus 205. Nunez, she's
retired.
Tired.
But she could come back for a super fight. If she wins the super fight, she's the champ again. The bet cashes. But as of right now, she's not interested in fighting again. So I don't know why you'd bet it.
Pena's the champ. No thanks.
I know, but
big Norm
plus 700, man. I mean, could she not be the champ by the end of the year?
You can lose to anybody here, though.
She could lose to all of them, and she could beat all of them. She's an absolute basket case.
Big Norm, 900 on Bet Online, 15-1 at DraftKings. If you have that, we're starting to get a little bit more interesting there because Big Norm coming off of that win over Irina Aldana with one of the nastiest cuts I've ever seen. Maybe one of the reasons why they changed the gloves. That was just nasty stuff. So she's moving up the chains there. I mean, Kale is obviously the chalk for good reason. But do they have to you should look up I don't see the rules really plainly listed here. It says interim titles don't count. Pena does strike me as the type of person who could just sit on this belt and not vacate.
They'll strip her. But then you have to fight for you have to fight for a vacant title. Oh, but then I guess the winner would get full status probably.
Yeah, I mean, I guess Pena's 7-1 doesn't seem crazy, but it's like I literally think like anybody on their night can take her out, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, so that's the beauty with this division. Juliana Pena was plus 800 yesterday. Now it's plus 700. And then that's actually where I think the smart money would be, in that she can beat these girls. And that kind of value she figures to be into a title fight. And Paul's not wrong. She might just have to win one time and then blow her knee out and sit on the thing for 11 months or 10 months or 9 months and then still be the champion by the end of the year. Maybe. But do you want to go off the board, Paul? Because why not? CF dot model.
That's what I like.
CF dot model. Okay, you're going to have to bear with me on this one. I'm looking at the odds here on this monitor. Okay, Eileen Perez, plus 8,000. I know, but you got to bear with me. You got to bear with me, Paul.
I don't know if I can be that greasy.
Yeah, I know. It is real greasy. Okay, so Kayla Harrison. Eileen Perez cannot beat Kayla Harrison. Let's get that out of the way. Even if they did book the fight, our first problem is getting the fight. The second problem is, would you actually win the fight? Which no is the answer to that. However, we've got two ways of tackling this, Paul. Thing number one, Kayla Harrison might not be able to make 135 pounds long term. She never used to fight at 135. She's super, super jacked. She's definitely getting older. These weight cuts are tremendous. She shows up just absolutely sculpted. If she misses weight, she gets stripped. You can't fight for a title. If she has a bad weight cut, she's out. If her nutritionist sits her down and says, you're never going to have kids, or you can just go to 145. I don't know. There's a scenario that exists that Kayla Harrison cannot make 135 long-term all year, and she cannot be the champion. There's another scenario that exists that she pisses hot because, goddamn, how the heck is she passing these drug tests? I don't know, Paul Shaughnessy. I'm a Kayla Harrison fan, sure, for sure. But if we're looking at different universes, if you read the headlines tomorrow and the headline was Kayla Harrison decides to leave 135 pounds, body can't handle the weight cut anymore, it's not a headline that would shock you. If the headline was Kayla Harrison popped by UFC's new anti-doping program, you probably also wouldn't be all that shocked. In that scenario, we knock Kayla Harrison off the board. That's what we need here. She's not a contender. Amanda Nunes, well, Eileen Perez also cannot beat Amanda Nunes, but that's fine. She's retired. As we mentioned, she's not fighting anyways. So you knock them both off the board. So now your board looks at Juliana Pena, Raquel Pennington, Macy Chiasson, Mara Buena Silva. Now ask yourself this. Could Eileen Perez beat them? Yes, because it's women's MMA, okay? It's pretty low level when you think about it. And when you're talking about Juliana Pena and Raquel Pennington, these are girls that are not good strikers, not good wrestlers, not known for any type of X factor. They've all just fought each other the last 10 years over and over in a goddamn repeat. There's no fresh blood. There's nobody to go out there and take control. Eileen Perez calls herself Argentinian Khabib because she got pace. She can't wrestle all that good, but she got pace. With that caboose on her, she can just keep muscling opponents. They're doing some really good work at Fortis MMA with her. They can just keep it focused on take these girls down, get on top of them, and go to Smash Town. I think Eileen Perez will have a lot of success. Now, she's still very young. She's still very green. Paul and I will talk about fights for her on the regional scene that are only like 3 years ago, where it's like the middle of nowhere, somebody's gym, and like just outside of some parking garage. It's low-level stuff. But think about that athlete that's hungry to improve. They come to the U.S. She gets this stupid little twerking thing, okay? You know what the twerking thing the UFC sees? $1 bills. They're going to fast-track somebody like that. So all she needs to do is go and beat a couple of these. Who's ahead of her? She goes out and beats Carol Rosa because Carol Rosa absolutely, positively cannot defensively wrestle. She got volume all day. She got BJJ black belt, but she's awful off her back and has no get-up game, okay? Exposed many of times. She beats Carol Rosa. Then what does she get? You know, Big Norm, Macy Chiasson? You beat one of them, then they're not going to be able to deny you. You got a little twerking thing. You're young. You're fresh blood in the division. You're the number 3 ranked contender. It's a shit division. You're getting the fight. But we need Kayla Harrison to either piss hot or miss weight and Amanda Nunes to enjoy retirement. Those both things happen. Eileen Perez plus 8,000 is just actually pretty good value.
If you liked Eileen Perez at plus 8,000, you're going to love her at 120-1 at DraftKings Sportsbook. I mean, oh God. I mean, disband the entire division the entire weight class if AFP is the champion by the end of this calendar year. I'm sorry, Cody. That would just be too much. That would just be too much. I wouldn't be able to
It's
take all that
incoming.
twerking. Think about her
Incoming.
going on like Good Morning America and just shaking that thing all over people. I can see it happening. I guess yeah, anything. I mean, outside of course, Harrison's the chalk, but it's like she looks a little like she looks like she could be exposed for sure.
Okay. Could I ask
Not
you
again,
this?
not in that matchup, but like something can go bad for her for sure over the course of the next 12 months.
What were the listed odds on Carol Rosa?
Women's bantamweight, Carol Rosa, 70-1 and 80-1 at Bet Online is the best option.
Okay, so this
Carol
is
Rosa's not winning the goddamn belt.
no. I'm not suggesting that. This is what I am suggesting. I'm suggesting Eileen Perez is fighting Carol Rosa 1 week from now. Okay, Eileen Perez is plus 120, or she's 125-1. Carol Rosa is 70-1. Eileen Perez goes out and beats her instantly. She would go from 125-1 probably to 60 or 70-1 based on one fight, 1 single week. Sorry, 2 weeks into the new year. So then she's got options now that she can squeeze in another 2 good fights and get the title fight. As long as you can get the fight, that's where the magic happens. Yeah, listen, if it was, it's plus 100, it's 125-1 or plus 8,000, depending on what book you're looking at. Yeah, come on, Paul. I think if you're looking to go off the radar here, I wouldn't say it's the craziest thing I've ever seen in my life. And the twerking thing is going to help get her fast-tracked. Within a thin division is all you need.
Thin division, fast.
Yeah, you're not
That's all
wrong.
you need.
You're not wrong.
The last person, I'm just making sure it's the right person and making sure that she didn't lose a fight, or look like horrible or anything like that. Nope, never mind. Not her. Casey O'Neill? No, that was at 125. Yeah, it's funny. They had Luana Santos listed at 135. I don't know. Maybe she's moving divisions or something like that. That one kind of like jumped out to me, and then I remembered that she lost to Casey O'Neill. So that's not happening at 125. But we'll move to 125 right now, which has Chev Chev as the champion, Manon Fiorot plus 200. Natalia Silva, 600 on DraftKings, 200 on Bet Online. That 600 on DraftKings seems muy picante. Grasso, 15-1 over on Bet Online. I mean, they've ran that around so much. It's like Grasso's going to need someone else to win that belt to kind of get back in there, I think, at this point. Blanchfield can be had at 10-1 at Bet Online. So that 3-1 at DraftKings Sportsbook, not so generous. Yeah, this division. I mean, Shevchenko's getting long in the tooth. Plus 175 at Bet Online is obviously considerably better. The top of the board plays seem to be a lot more generous over on the offshore there. I'll pull that screen up right now for everyone to see. Plus 175. If you were going to bet the champ, obviously do it over there. But yeah, like the Natalia Silva at a DraftKings Sportsbook plus 600. That's a pretty decent bet, I think, as well. Otherwise, yeah, how do you see this division shaking out over the course of the calendar year?
Yeah, I got Natalia Silva as well. Plus 200 is what it was on Bet Online, which you don't love because it's just not juicy enough. And then plus 600, yeah, I mean, that's to me the logical play. She's young, she's getting better, she's getting some real momentum right now. Valentina Shevchenko is a historic champion. I mean, she's broken a lot of grounds and she's set a lot of records, but facts are facts is that her time is coming. It looked like Grosso dethroned her. It looks like Grosso was going to kind of put the nail in the coffin, but unfortunately, a lot of backlash from Shevchenko. She was able to regain the title and then furthermore defend it. So yeah, Grosso's off now because she can't fight Shevchenko again. They need a fresh challenger. Natalia Silva poses a lot of problems. She's got physicality. She's got good striking. She's got solid enough cardio. I do feel like she probably at some point gets a crack at the title. If she can get that, she can capitalize. If you got a plus 600 ticket, you'd be feeling real good about it. And then Dakota Chiva, there's no price listed. If you can get them into giving you a price, I honestly think that she would have same thing, fast tracked, probably get a title fight sooner rather than later, has the skill set to capitalize if given the opportunity. And then women's 115, Zhang Weilei. It's a division that she's pretty well cleared out. I don't see anybody stepping up to beat her as of right now. It's plus money for her to retain by the end of the year. Again, when you start to get older at these lighter weight classes, eventually, time is going to catch up to you. But it looks to me like she's still got the goods. Had a bit of a scare at UFC 300, got knocked around a little bit, but just the ability to grapple, and that's really the common theme you got to look at. All of these champions, heavyweight down, John Jones can wrestle. Tom Aspinall, he's a ground guy. Ankalaev, because he's a ground guy. Chimaev, Dricus Duplessis, Caio Barahau, all them because they're ground guys. Bilal Muhammad, Islam Makhachev, Ilya Tapuria. I went with a little Zalal, all ground guys. Davashvili, ground guy. Makayev and Brandon Moreno, ground guys. That's what wins championships. So other than Poatan, and everybody loves Poatan because he's actually the one guy that doesn't have any grappling that's won a title. And the UFC knows that, and that's why they book him against strikers, because it's exciting to have a guy that just knocks people out cold. But the winning formula over the last 25 years has been take people down and smash them on the ground. So that's why you might be sitting at home laughing about Makayev or Eileen Perez. I get it, but at least they're grapplers, and they have the type of grappling that, if given the opportunity, could potentially use that effectively and capitalize and cash you the ticket. Looking at 115, Zhang Weilei Zhang, however part of the world you want to pronounce it from, I just think she's got the grappling chops and the wrestling to neutralize most of these fighters. She can stand with 90% of the division, and that few that might be able to get the better of her, she can revert to her wrestling tactics. This will probably be effective for another year, another 2 years, and then at some point, a new contender emerges, or Zhang Weilei's skill set just starts to diminish. But as of now, I think she's okay.
February 8th, she's fighting my girl, Cody. Tatiana Suarez.
Can I give you my opinion on that one?
Fights booked, so I don't know if anybody was going to provide issues for Zhang Weili in the grappling department. It's my girl Tati Suarez plus 185. That would be my play. But that's just because I've always been a long-time fan, everything like that. I called for her to be the champion years ago, and then obviously injuries, everything like that got in the way. If it stays on the feet, it's going to be a hard time, but it's like her wrestling is so elite that if I know the Nina Ansaroff fight, she kind of came back, and I don't think she had, she didn't seem like herself, and there's been a lot of time off since then. There's a big cloud of issues there, but if we can get back to what we had seen on her rise up the division, particularly early in that run, that wrestling was so elite, nobody had an answer for it. So that's maybe less sharp and more from the heart, but Suarez, like her. And then as you look down the rest of this board in the division, I mean, it is in theory kind of wide open, but is it? Like a lot of these people, I really don't think have much of a chance. Does Verna maybe have a chance? She's boring. Would they even give her a title shot? That's where the question kind of comes in.
Yeah, Verna could get a title shot. Listen, I like Suarez, and I used to say Suarez would be the future champion as well, but either the injuries and the layoffs and could be a little bit of self-doubt. I'm not sure. She just has not gone for the title fight. And then you look at her resume, she chokes out Alexa Grasso, who went on to win a UFC title. And then her next fight, she ground and pounds Carla Esparza, who is a former UFC champion, beats Nina Nunez, as you mentioned, and then she takes 2 years off, 3 years off. She comes back from a 3-year-long layoff, up a weight class at 125 against Montana De La Rosa, chokes her out in the second round. Why not just take the fight? Your body's not holding up. She's been in the organization for 8 years now. 8 years in the organization, and she's had 7 official fights with the UFC. Her body just doesn't hold up, and they've just not given her the title fight. They booked her versus Roxanne Modafferi. They booked her against Verna Jandiroba. They booked her against Amanda Lemos. Then they booked her against Verna Jandiroba. She keeps suffering these injuries and pulling out. So imagine the UFC says, hey, do you want to fight Amanda Lemos? You're like, yeah. Then you pull out because you get hurt. So then they're like, hey, do you want to fight Vernon Jandaroba? You're like, yeah, okay. And then you pull out because you get hurt. Then the UFC's like, do you want a title fight? How did you get a title fight? You just pulled out of 2 fights versus contenders. They were contender fights. They weren't even number 1 contender fights, if we're being honest with you. It was Amanda Lemos and Vernon Jandaroba. You pulled out of both of them. The UFC realizes she's 34 years old. Her body's not holding up. She can't fight 2 times a year. They're just fast-tracking her right in there. And for her, she's an athlete. She wrestled her whole life. She, ends up being a solid MMA fighter, goes undefeated, has all this hype. Body's not holding up. Now she's 34. She's not made the big money off those big fights. She's not had those big paychecks. She can't afford to fight an Amanda Lemos. She needs to just get that title fight and hope for the best. So she comes in, not fully 100%, probably a bit banged up, definitely a lot of ring rust, and she has the wrestling. She'll take Zhang Weili down. She'll get some ground and pound off. She'll hopefully improve some positions. Round 2, she's got to do it again. Round 3, she's got to do it again. And then she's either got to coast or survive, but that round 4 and 5, rounds that she's not had to go to, if she can't get takedowns, and you see this all the time, world-class wrestlers get the wrestling going early, the longer it goes, fatigue starts to set in. Again, you have a 34-year-old fighter who's fought 7 times in the last 8 years. It's not crazy to think that the longer that fight goes, Zhang Weili just uses some of that championship backlash, finds a way to keep this thing standing, and is able to beat her with the striking. And the other thing is, if you would have fought her 3 years ago, your wrestling's way better. Now you're fighting her at a point in her career where it's like, her wrestling's pretty damn good, man. Like, you probably out-grapple her, sure, but is it that so definitive that you're easily going to be able to do it for 25 minutes? Not entirely sure. I did consider Suarez. It's that her just jumping into a title fight after the inactivity and the injuries just to cash out on that one big fight. I couldn't get behind it, so I went with Zhang Weili there. But I know she's your girl, and she's got the style to make it happen. We love wrestlers, we love grapplers, but
she got the injury history that she could beat Zhang Weili and then not fight again and still have the belt by the end of 2025.
But does she get stripped from the title if that's the case? She fights, she wins.
Because of her history, they could, or they love doing interims, Cody. They love doing it.
That doesn't cash if it's interim.
No, but if she beats Zhang Weili, has the belt, other people get the interim, she still has the real belt. She's a winner.
Bang. Yeah, you know what? You're actually not wrong. Sounds crazy, but you're not wrong. And could Verna get a fight? Sure. But if Verna gets a fight, I think Zhang Weili beats her. I think Tatiana Suarez probably beats her. It's a thin division. So, these off-the-board picks aren't so crazy. You just got to make sure your fighter gets into that spot and then hopefully has a style to make it happen. So,
and with Suarez, it's like she is in that spot. She's right there. All right. So, we went through all the divisions. Obviously, these markets are not very liquid. You're not going to get rich doing these. Typically, it's like the limits are usually pretty low for good reason. Like, they're pretty exploitable, particularly if you're paying real close attention to fight bookings and stuff like that. Definitely an edge to be had there. But yeah, over on the Patreon here, basically essentially the plan here is if there's odds available for a mixed martial arts contest that are readily available that we can bet, we plan to kind of break it down. You sent me a list the other day, Cody, of events that you were looking forward to that we could break down right here on this channel. There was LFA. Rhyme off all of the things that we plan on doing this month.
Yeah, essentially, okay, so we never want to charge anybody for picks, right? We're not selling picks. And for the last 10 years, we've done the show for free on YouTube. We've had various sponsors. They've picked up the bill for the most part. But yeah, it's either been a labor of love or always been free to the community. So it's not like we're looking for a handout or anything. It's just we want to create more content, but we never want to make Dogger Pass Podcast a paid show. That's kind of our show to the fans. If you're watching this now, it's because you're a fan through that show. We never want to take that away, right? It's not trying to be some exclusive club. It's that you can be part of the extra, be part of the more, be part of the behind the scenes, but that would remain its own thing. So, what would people be interested in watching us do outside of UFC picks? So obviously, UFC recaps and shows like this where we shoot the shit, a variety podcast. But I think we tackle this B league market, right? I used to do breaking down the Bs on my YouTube channel. I enjoyed it. You find these little spots here and there, just like we're talking about this futures thing. It's like there's the obvious ones, and then there's this crazy plus 8,000 that when you think about it is not crazy at all, and it's plus 8,000. That's what you can get on the regional. So I mentioned to Paul, I'm like, for this week alone, there's a UFC the first week of the year, second week of the year technically, but there was a one championship, there's an LFA, and there's a Fury FC on the Sunday. So you could do LFA on the Friday or one championship on the Friday, UFC on the Saturday, and then Fury FC on the Sunday. The UFC is always going to be same place, Mayo Media Network, for free, whole show. It's that extra stuff if you want to talk about it. Now, if Paul goes to Bet Online right now, we're recording this Tuesday night. As of Tuesday night, they've got odds up for everything. They even have BYB Extreme 35, and that's
They have odds up for it already?
Of course. It's a bare knuckle boxing event in a slice of pizza. They call it the Trigon, but there's no mat space, and you're banging it out. BYB has 9 fights that have betting odds as of right now. Now, as Paul mentioned, soft limits, I think $100, but also you can't parlay them together because they're wise. Thursday, come the day before, 2 days before, they'll allow you to parlay these together. And that, of course, you guys know me. I love the parlays. But beyond parlaying stuff, you just hit this one little pick here, 2 little picks here. We obviously don't have time to break down the 12 fights on Fury FC, the 10 fights on One Fight Championship. My mistake, Paul. LFA only has odds up for 3 of the fights, but they'll add the 10 other ones. We just don't have the time. What we will do is do a best of the rest show where we talk for an hour, hour and a half, however long it takes, and give you the best plays from those other organizations.
Yeah.
Now, 2 things can happen here. If you have a Bet Online account, then you're good. You can bet all that. That's the odds that we'll be using. Okay. They're not sponsoring us. Fuck them. What I'm saying is we'll be using those odds. If you're with another book and you say to yourself, geez, this does me no good, I don't have those odds. All you got to do is take Bet Online's odds or the other websites that have it, send it to your bookie and say, would you honor the odds? From my experience, they want your action 100%. They may not set the odds themselves because they think there's no interest.
You may get better odds at other
German,
too,
it's German Bundesliga soccer. They may not give a crap, right? If you say, I remember Submission Underground, Chael Sonnen Submission Underground. It was a Bodog, and it's like COVID time, so there's quite literally nothing on. I'm like, I want to bet on Submission Underground. Hit them up. They're like, where are the odds? Send them an on. You're not sending them some random sheet you drew up. You're not sending them some scam sheet you found on the internet. You're sending them the odds set up from another reputable book. They're in competition with these books. They want your action. There's a reason you're not betting on that other book because you're willing to give them your money. They're going to honor it. They're going to honor it. The more you do that, the more these regional show events will be on all books. But what I'm telling you is if it's on UFC Fight Pass, automatically it has odds. Any show that's on Fight Pass, I shouldn't say any. If it's Alaska FC or something random, if it has less than 6 fights on a pro main card, there's no odds for it. If it's more than 6 fights on a pro main card, or on a pro card, I should say, more than 6 pro fights, they'll give you action on it. The fact that BYB is giving you 9 fights, and this show's on Saturday, today's Tuesday, the fact that they're out 5 days in advance like that, there's tons of opportunity for guys like us to zone in on a few of these. So again, I'm not saying we're going to break down 40 additional fights. It's that we'll take you through. These ones are the best ones of the group. And again, even just this Fury FC card, it's Fury FC 100, right? Shimon Smachinsky, he was on the Contender Series. Cameron Graves versus Justice Torres, top guys. Paris Moran, he's going to be on the Contender Series. He's their champ. Malik Lewis, he fought Trevor Peake on the Contender Series. There's 3-4 Contender Series guys on all these cards. There'll be another 2 or 3 Contender Series guys on the LFA. This one Fight Night Championship, I'm telling you straight up, one's generally a death trap for betting, so I mean, buyer beware. But you can get John Lineker at -125 in a straight up banger of a fight. And let me tell you, I've been betting John Lineker lately. He is back, baby. Oh my God.
I've been betting him too on one.
And they've been disrespecting him too. He's plus
not just Bet Online that has these though. There are other books. Like they tend to be some of the greasier books. Like I don't even know where they're from, but they pay. There's one called like 22 Bet. Sometimes the limits are pretty bad on that for like sometimes they're not even worth like betting, but certain events you can do like rebets and stuff. So it's like you may have to fire in like 25 bets at like $30 to get down what you want on things, but you can do it. You have to get a little bit creative sometimes with these. And then on top of that, what I thought we were probably gonna do is like maybe on Friday or Saturday, um, do like a final kind of run through and maybe give some people some props because like when we do Dog or Pass on Mayo Media Network and promo code Dog or Pass at a cool bet for they've been great to us. So it's like all of what we're doing here has nothing to do with that situation. Like that's been a great situation for us. It's like we just want to have a reason to do more for people, be invested in building up our community, I suppose you could say.
Well, we've been lucky
no,
that we've
I just want to say that like we want to do like I wanted to do like a prop show. End of the week, do like because we never really get to talk about the props because like we do the show on Wednesday and it's like Bet Online, frankly, is like the worst book to do props at a lot of the times because unless it's a pay-per-view, most of the books don't even have the props out. But like a lot of my game goes into like shopping, like finding props that I think have a good chance to win, and then shopping around and finding the best price for them. And most books, for especially a lot of these like Apex cards and stuff, like they don't have wins by submission, submission KO. They don't have a lot of longer props and like certain round winners and stuff like that. Those things just aren't available on a Wednesday when we record Dog or Pass. So I was thinking, like Friday or Saturday, we'll work out a time, and it's going to be a work in progress here, figuring out what works for you guys, what works for us, and how to give you guys the most value here on a weekly basis. But yeah, all of the like Bellator, Fury. I didn't even know what BYB is, but it sounds like
Dada 5000 owns it, man. It's the Trigon. You never watched it?
Didn't Dada 5000 die on that Bellator card? No.
Technically, yes. No. Technically, he did. Yeah. Technically, he died in the ambulance, but they rebooted his heart. Yeah, kidney failure did him in.
Okay.
Yeah. It's one of two fights that I've seen, professional fights, big stage fights, where the fight got stood up from full mount, right? So yeah, Kimbo's amazing. Full mounted on Dada 5000. He stands him up. And Dada ends up dying in the ambulance, resuscitated, but temporarily dies due to kidney failure. The other fight was Chad Griggs, Bobby Lashley. Bobby Lashley had mounted Chad Griggs. The ref's like, you're not doing anything. He stood it up. Dude, Bobby Lashley also got sent to the hospital, kidney failure. So bottom line is if you got a full mount on somebody and the ref's like, you got to do something, and you can't do it, it's not you don't want to do it. It's your body's quite literally shutting down. So, listen, man, when we came out of college and working at Fight Network, it was all about coming up with ideas and throwing new things at a board. And I think that was the sweetest part about living with Mayo and being in Toronto, and was we came up with so many wacky ideas. And if we were to take this back to those days, it's like sky's the limit. We would be trying to pitch post weigh-in shows, right? Where we watch the weigh-ins. Hell, we can put the weigh-ins up and watch them together, Paul, or at least, the highlight weigh-ins where they get on the scale and they do the stare down and give our thoughts and add props. We can do a dog show where we're picking underdogs. We can do post weigh-in recaps. We can do event recaps. We can do regional show MMA. We can do stories of MMA. We have the freedom to do a bunch of different things. We've been very
freedom to smoke a cigarette because I don't usually actually smoke in my house, but I think at this basement I probably will be smoking a lot more.
Hey, I'm trying to keep it to a minimum because I know some of our fans are probably highly against that, and I appreciate you looking the other way. But again, what I'm saying is that we've been very lucky to have sponsors that have just paid us a good amount of money to do one single show. That's how it's always been. Do the one preview show, and that's it. As a result, you sign a contract. You're not really free to do a zillion other things and then gather other sponsors on it. So again, this is just a way that we can start up some of those ideas. And this is where you, the fans, come and help. Is that let us know what you want. Are you looking for event recaps? Are you looking for prop shows? Are you looking for post weigh-in thoughts? Do you like this regional stuff? Do you want to do something like Bout Scout where you send me the fight and you get the opinion, or you send us the fight and you get our opinion? Love to do a Q&A. You guys into Q&As? Is that a weekly thing you do? Do you do it before the fight? Do you do it on a random midday? We want your voice to be heard here. We want basically a lot of your opinions, and we're going to listen to those opinions. And I'll admit, I used to have a bigger presence on Twitter, but Twitter just became an absolute cesspool. You start to lose love of it. You also just start to lose time. You're a family guy, and you got bills, and you got a mortgage, and you've got running around. The car needs new brakes, and It's the kid's birthday party, and oh, you got to go to your buddy's cottage, and oh, your mom's inviting you for dinner. Like life just continuously starts going, and it's not going to stop for anybody. So if you can focus your attention on what are the things that people want to see and what are the things that people want to engage with, I want to engage with the people again. That's like my 2025 resolution, sorry, for this year, is to re-engage the fans. But I'm not going to lie, when you go on Twitter and you have 20,000 plus followers, you get 100 notifications, and 75 of them or 85 of them are really positive, and 10 or 15 of them are super negative, and eventually it's just too much energy spent into it. What we're going to do here is farm a new community, more of a private community, that if you've got questions, that's what we're here for. I want to answer questions. We've never had a co-host on the show the last 10 years. We've never had, guests come in and give their opinions. We've never interviewed fighters. That is something that we have the ability to do now.
Yeah.
So we can cross promote with people. We can have different takes. We can do a straight debate, I'd love to have the top capper from 10 different countries, 15 different countries, and do like a little World Cup thing. If you're the top guy in France, hop in. We would represent Canada. Let's get a 2-on-2. We'll get 2 guys from the US and 2 guys from Finland, 2 guys from Belgium. It's an international community. We've got fans all over. I'm not hearing their voices anymore because I'm tuning out all of the white noise. I regret that. And I kind of want to bring that back in and create a community again and interact with people. So that's what I've been missing. That's what I'd like to do. I just feel like this is probably the best option to allow us to convey that. So that's what we're attempting anyways. Again, if you're supporting it, truly do appreciate it. If not, hopefully we can build something that eventually you do want to support in the future. But either way, I think the only way you can get anything done is if you just commit to it and do it. And that's what we're doing right now.
100%. Well said, Cody. Well said. All right, that is it for us on this episode. You're going to see us on Dogger Pass on Mayo Media Network. Wednesday, that'll drop. Thursday, we're going to be doing stuff every single day here. So recaps, we have studios in our own house. We have capabilities to bring you guys more content. And we're happy that you're here. We're truly, truly happy that you're here for this ride. All the best and see you soon.